All right, we're going to keep moving right on. Next up, we're going to talk about effective press releases. And our speaker, I have to tell you a story. So our next speaker sent an email to several of us on the Public Image Committee and several of the district governor leadership team and said, I want to get involved on a district level. So I was talking with Mary Gaskin, and I said, Mary, I would love to talk to her. So me and Angie talked, and within about 5 minutes, I knew she was going to be a great fit. And within 10 minutes, I asked her to speak today. So I tell you what, we hit it off, and I can tell you I've seen her presentation. We're in for a treat. Joining us, the current president of the Rotary Club of Georgetown, Angie Kohl. Angie, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Donald. Thank you. I'm excited to be presenting, and I'm excited to be involved at the district level in any capacity that I can serve. So as Donald mentioned, he did ask me to talk about press releases. Before I start with the presentation, I'm just going to give you a little bit more of a background on myself. I am the current president of the Rotary Club of Georgetown. Prior to being president, I served as the public image director for this club for several years and also in my previous club. So I was very involved in everything public image related for a number of years. And in my real life job, I am the executive director of a nonprofit. So once again, you know, public image and media coverage and press releases and such, all of that's been a part of my everyday life for a very long time. So having said that, that does not by any stretch make me an expert on press releases, but I am going to share with you what I do know and what was helpful to me as I went through the process myself in learning how to do an effective press release. So let me see if I can share my screen here. Let's see. There we go. Can everybody see that?
Yes, we're good, Angie.
Good deal. Okay, well, obviously the biggest part of a press release, the purpose of it is to get the word out. What word are we getting out? That word is any information that you want the media or others, not just the media, but anybody, what you want them to know about what you're doing or what you have done. That basically covers the who, what, when, where, why, and how of what you're doing. It includes the important details of what you've done, and it also provides background information. It lets people know who you are, what you're about, a little bit history about your organization or your club. And there are many reasons why you do need a press release. Some of those reasons include announcing an event. I know from my own experience with my club, the Shag Festival that we've had for 12 or 13 years has been our biggest event. Press releases have been very effective in announcing that event and getting people involved in it. And why is the event important? Why are you telling people about it? Obviously, you want them to be a part of it. You want them to sponsor it. You want them to attend it, whatever the case may be. It increases visibility. It reminds people of what you're about, what your organization is about, what you're doing. But it's also, it doesn't just talk about what you're going to do, it also can highlight what you have done. If your club has done something really big and you want to make a big deal about it, you want everybody to know about it, a press release is what you need to do to be able to share that information. So to break it down, a press release basically is the stuff that's happened because you want to generate the coverage. You want to generate coverage about what you have done, your recent events, your service projects, any changes in the club. We're coming up at the year end for Rotary, so you're going to have induction of officers. A press release is a great way to share that information. Any awards that your club has given, scholarships, if you have scholarships that you award. It also includes the stuff that's going to happen. Again, For the stuff that's going to happen, that's not yet happened, you want to generate coverage. You want to try to impress upon people that they need to attend, they need to participate, they need to purchase tickets, whatever the case may be. So you want to use that for any of your upcoming events or general announcements. If you just have something in your club that you want to announce, a press release is what you would use. So there are two types of press releases. We call it the do versus the applaud. The do press release basically is a press release that talks about what your club did and you're bragging about it. Heck, well, nothing's wrong with bragging. If you did something great, let everybody know about it. The second one is applaud. And again, if somebody else did something great, applaud them. So you're letting people know that you're really pleased, or in some cases that you're displeased that someone did something. But I think in Rotary, most of the time it's about applauding and doing. I don't think we're too concerned about the displeasure. But keep in mind, because when you're writing your press release, you have to think about, is it do or is it applaud? When you think about it from that perspective, it makes getting the details into the press release a little bit easier. And so there are some very simple steps in creating an effective press release. The first thing being is you want it to read like a news article. You want it to be newsworthy. You want it to be interesting, emphasize importance, be provocative, get their attention. But yet you want to be very clear in what your headline is and what your story is. And you really want to make sure it's looking professional. Check and double check and triple check for typos or misspellings. You know, you want to be presenting a professional looking document that thoroughly includes what you want it to include. So let's talk for a minute about the press release headline. The headline obviously is just that. It's going to be the title, if you will, of your press release. If that title or that headline is not interesting, it's not going to get anybody's attention. It's got to be something that's very direct, very catching, and that will get the attention of the reader. It has to be appealing. You don't want it to be very long, but you want it to be long enough that it gives them enough detail where they want to read the rest of the press release. And of course, you don't want it to be vague. As I said, it needs to be thorough, it needs to be direct, but interesting. Let me try doing this. Oh, shoot, hang on guys, sorry. Okay, so this is another little breakdown of the headline itself. Basically, the headline is to provide information. You're not trying to sell anything or advertise anything. You're just providing information, trying to get their attention and make them want to learn more about what it is that you're talking about. The reason that it needs to be short, as I mentioned, is because search engines have a very specific headline limit. When you're searching for something, you know, you can't put a whole paragraph in there and search for it. It's only going to pick up so many characters. And here you see, there's an example for Google. It's 60 characters. For Yahoo, 120. PR Web, 170. So anything beyond those numbers, it's useless because they're not going to be able to search for it and find it. As far as the formatting of the headline, you want to make sure you capitalize every word, as this is mentioned here, except for the prepositions and the articles. And you want to write your headline and summary last to be sure that you include the most important keywords and information. In other words, write the body of your press release first, read it, maybe get someone else to read it, get feedback from them. What did you get from the body of this press release? And then use that information to make your headline. Here's an example of a press release that I pulled. Resort Quest expands vacation rental operations into the Alabama Gulf Coast. It's pretty simple, straightforward. You know, if you're interested in Resort Quest rentals, or you know, the Alabama Gulf Coast, obviously that's going to catch your attention. So make sure, like I said, that you stay within the search engine limits, just to make sure that you're not, sorry guys, I just left my place. Okay. To make sure that you're not losing potential viewers for your press release. So after you've done the headline, as I said, is the title, and I mentioned that you should do the body first, because the body of the press release is where you're actually telling your story. Like any news story, the purpose of it is to give your reader information. You want to be neutral and objective, like a newscaster. You don't want it to sound like you're advertising yourself or advertising an event. More in terms of reporting on the event, letting people know about it, but in a very neutral tone. The body is usually 2 to 3 paragraphs. It's not real long. Again, you want to keep this as informative as possible, but as short as possible, because people are only going to read so much of it. And making sure too, as you're going through the body, only include relevant information. If you put a bunch of information in there that's completely irrelevant to what you're talking about, people are not, they're not going to take the press release seriously. They're just going to file 13 it, and it's not going to make it to where it needs to be. So in the opening paragraph, you're going to talk about, as I mentioned earlier, the who, what, when, where, and why. There, you're going to talk about it in more detail. In the second paragraph, you're going to add details that support what you're saying or add interest to what you're doing, reinforce what you're trying to say. That is where you want to include quotes. It could be quotes from yourself. It could be from your club president, or anyone who is directly related to what that press release is about. You can include quotes from them, you know, any of your members. You can include statistics, charts, graphics. And then the last paragraph of the press release is important information that kind of summarizes the entire press release. That is where you would then add any additional information, any details that you wanted them to know. And that also should be very short, 1 to 2 sentences. And this is where your call to action is. This is where you're going to tell them what you want them to do. Do you want them to attend a meeting? Do you want them to buy tickets to your Shag Festival? As I've mentioned here, I just use this as an example. Shag Festival tickets for $20 each at Root or at GeorgetownRotaryClub.org. Very simple. You're telling them exactly what you need them to do and how they need to do it. The other important part of a press release is what's called the boilerplate. And the reason that section is so important is because that is the section that talks about you in your organization. And here I've just used an example for Rotary, since we're doing Rotary press releases here. It just basically gives you information. And again, I use Georgetown Rotary Club. This is information that I use on my press releases. So it tells you what Rotary is about. It, you know, tells you what our club has done. You know, we've donated to the Alzheimer's research. We've donated to the Rotary Foundation. You know, we fund local community service projects. It also says when our meetings are, where our meetings are, and how people can learn more about your organization. So this is definitely a part of the press release that you do not want to leave out. And this is another sample that I pulled, and this little cartoon I couldn't couldn't agree with more. It says, we need a PR expert who can make heads or tails out of what I'm trying to say to the public. And that's exactly what it's like when you're trying to do a press release, because sometimes it's very difficult to get that wording in your head and then to put it out there so that it makes sense to everybody else. So if you look at this sample here, it kind of gives you the same breakdown I just gave you. It gives you the headline, it gives you the body, it gives you, you know, the different areas, the sandbox, which is the middle of the press release. And it's called the sandbox because that's where you play. That's where you put all the interesting information. That's where you're really getting people's attention. Is through the middle of the press release. And so again, like I said here, in the last paragraph, you're going to sum up what you're trying to say, what your main point is, what your call to action is. And this is a sample of one of my press releases for, excuse me, the Rotary Club of Georgetown. This is the one that was done in 2018 that I did for our Shag Festival. Again, here you see the very first, talks about location, talks about details, and then you got the sandbox, the call to action, what you're trying to get people to do, what you want them to do with this information. And then the boilerplate that talks about the Rotary Club of Georgetown, what we're about, what we're doing, how we're involved in the community. And you also want to make sure, if you see here, there are graphics, there are pictures. The more interesting you make the press release, the more interesting you make it look, the more response you're going to get to it. So, to recap basically the press release, it's to communicate the who, what, when, where, and how. You're going to write it in short, easy to understand sentences. And you have to remember when you're addressing your target audience that you're being neutral. You're not addressing them directly, so you want to make sure that you maintain a neutral tone throughout the press release. And don't refer to yourself or your company as I or we. Again, make sure that you keep it a very neutral tone. And so there are a few tips that I can offer that I have learned some the hard way. One of them being do not use exclamation points. Don't inflate what you're trying to say or make it sound almost unbelievable, because they're going to believe that it is unbelievable. Don't use capital letters to emphasize what you're trying to say, because it looks less credible to the person reading it. And the other thing that you have to be really careful about, especially in today's world with so much cyber attack activity going on, is including link spam. And what that means is being very careful how many website links that you include in your press release. A few links are okay, but if you put more than 2 or 3 in there, again, it's going to be flagged as spam, and it'll never make it to where it needs to really go. Another tip is to stay focused. Like I said earlier, make sure that you keep your theme, make it short, make it entertaining, interesting, but also making sure that you're getting that main effect across, that what you're trying to say, and making sure that you're checking your spelling and your grammar. Again, making it look professional. You don't want to send a press release out to somebody that looks like a 6th grader did it. So you want to make sure that it's a professional looking press release. And you don't want to use opinions. As I mentioned earlier, quotes. If you want to quote someone, that's great, but make sure that you include who made that quote. so that it doesn't come across as someone's opinion. So that's very important. The other thing too that I have found that makes it, and it's not just with press releases, and I know that you've all seen this. So one thing with websites and links, if you include an anchor text link, it makes it so much easier because it's basically one click. So, you know, I'm assuming that you guys know what that means, but an example would be if I was asking somebody to purchase tickets for our Shag Festival, and what I would do was say, purchase tickets here, and highlight those 3 words and connect the link directly to the Shag ticket purchase site. So that way they're making one click and they're going directly to where they need to go to be able to order those Shag Festival tickets. Another thing too that makes it real easy in reading press releases is formatting. So you want to make sure that you're using easy formatting for easy reading. Bullet lists are really easy because it allows a person to scan the press release, and if they see a bullet item that they're interested in, you know, then they're going to continue to read. So, and it makes it a whole lot easier when they're trying to scan these for particular topics. So, and again, like I said, visuals. It's really important to use visuals, again, because that allows them to easily see. You know, we all have that tendency at times when we're looking at a magazine, for instance, or a newspaper. What do we tend to do? We look at the pictures first and then go back sometimes and read the text, sometimes not. So pictures are very important in making sure that you're getting your message across. And you want to make sure that you're using low resolution photos. The other thing that is, and this is definitely one of those things that I did learn the hard way, because I used to be one of those that like to do everything by email, including my press releases, and I would always send it as an attachment. Well, then I would get frustrated because nothing was happening with my press releases. And this is why, because when you send it as an attachment to your email and it goes to someone else's email, the text that's in the body of that press release can sometimes cause all kinds of red flags with their firewalls, their security systems. It may not even end up in their inbox. It may end up going to trash. But the other thing too is that we can sometimes share viruses through attachments that we didn't even know we had. And so for that reason, you do not want to include it as an attachment to your email. What you're going to do in lieu of that is to cut and paste. You know, you're going to copy that Word document or whatever format that you use to create that press release, and then you're going to paste it into the body of your email. And again, that makes it a whole lot easier for people to access it without the opportunity to get a virus or for it to be firewalled and for them to never receive it.
Angie, let me jump in. We're getting close on time. Okay. So I want to wrap it up with a question I received that was sent directly to me. Is what is an anchor text and how do you set it up?
An anchor link?
Correct.
Okay. An anchor link is like if you're, I'm trying to use an example. I used it earlier. Say for instance, in my press release, I'm trying to sell tickets to my Shag Festival, okay? So I'm saying what I would do as my anchor text would be purchase tickets here. That would be my text. Well, what you would then do is go back and highlight with your mouse, highlight those 3 words, purchase tickets here, and then you would add a hyperlink to those 3 words. And that hyperlink would direct them to the website where they can purchase those Shag Festival tickets. And it would be a one-click deal where all they have to do is click that one link and it would take them directly to the Georgetown Rotary Club website where they could purchase Shag tickets.
Excellent. Thank you for asking, and thank you for presenting today. I greatly appreciate it. Such informative information. I think I said this earlier. Social media, we could talk all day. We gave them 20 minutes. Press releases and stuff like this, we could talk all day, 15 minutes. We jam-pack it full, folks. Thank you, Angie. Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Liz. And thank you, Cynthia, for speaking today.